The aim of this podcast is to give a brief overview of the different personality types and the effect that they can have on an individual's education. We will look at how these personality differences can affect the teaching style used. Finally, we will show how the teacher's personality reflected in their teaching style can have an effect on student learning and education.
Personality differences are traits that contribute significantly to both success and failure in education. As teachers, it is important to take personality and individual differences into account when dealing with our students. This helps us to learn about the dimensions of our own personality and help us understand why students think, feel, and act differently.
In 1983, Howard Gardner introduced the theory of multiple intelligences. This theory was introduced to illustrate the fact that students think, learn, and remember in different ways. It highlights that intelligence is not fixed. It is a dynamic capacity which is susceptible to change by good teaching, high motivation, and adequate resources. These learning styles vary from visual learning to kinesthetic learning to interpersonal learning. It highlights the fact that students learn in ways that are identifiably distinctive. Learning styles are essential for both students and teachers. As teachers, we are more inclined to teach the way that we learn, so understanding how students learn is important.
Teaching styles refer to the general principles, pedagogy, and management strategies used for classroom routine. In this podcast, we will carry out two separate teaching activities, illustrating the key differences between the teacher-centered approach and the student-centered approach to teaching.
Okay, right lads, we're going through the preparation of a titration today. We're going to be titrating hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide. Right, so we have HCl in the burette, 50 mils of it. We've got 25 mils of NaOH in the conical flask. Our indicator is phenolphthalein, and our endpoint will be pink to colourless. Yeah, Ryan?
Why is the HCl in the burette and not the NaOH?
Ryan, you don't need to know that now for this experiment. Just take down what I've given you on the board, okay? Beth, you had a question there as well, did you?
I was just going to ask the same questions, right?
Right, okay, that's grand then, Beth. Alright, we'll get started so lads, you can head over to the lab.
In this teaching activity, we can see the teacher, Grace, is only concerned with the material that is to be learnt rather than the student's understanding. She does not welcome Ryan or Beth's questions. These students are going to learn this material by heart without understanding it, and will be deterred from participating in the classroom dynamic in the future. Grace's personality has therefore had a negative impact on the student's education.
Lads, today the experiment, we're just going to do a simple titration. It's on page 20 of your lab manual. We've NaOH in the conical flask, we've HCl in the burette, we have our indicator as phenolphthalein. The colour will be pink, and once you do the titration it will go colourless if you've done it right. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Yes, Killian?
Why isn't the NaOH in the burette?
That was a great question, Killian. Does anyone actually know the answer?
Because it'll clog the burette.
Yes, Ryan, that's what happens. The NaOH will react with carbon dioxide in air, forming a solid sodium carbonate, which will then clog the tap of the burette. Right, lads, we'll get started in the experiment now. If you have any questions while we're doing it, feel free to ask me. I'll do my best to help you out.
Here we see that the teacher, Ryan, is focused on his students and their understanding of this classroom experiment. In contrast to the previous example, Ryan welcomes Killian's question. He further endorses the student-centered approach to teaching by having another student, Ryan, answer the question. These students will be much more actively engaged in the classroom dynamic. It is clear from this example that Ryan's personality has had a positive impact on the students and their education.
From our two teaching activities, it should now be clear that personality differences play a significant role in the students' education and learning. It is clear that approaches to both teaching and learning are dictated strongly by different personality types in the classroom.
Bearing all of this in mind, it is important to remember that if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn.